The birthday cake sat perfect on the kitchen counter. Chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. Tommy's favorite. 7 candles waiting to be lit. I'd spent the morning decorating our backyard with superhero banners and balloons, setting up the bounce house, arranging party favors in little gift bags. Everything had to be perfect for my son's 7th birthday. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock. Right on time. The first guests were arriving, and I could hear Tommy's excited footsteps racing toward the front door. My heart swelled watching him bounce with anticipation. This was his day. Our day. But when I opened that door, my world tilted off its axis. Mark stood there with a woman I'd never seen before. Beautiful. Blonde. Wearing a sundress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She had her arm linked through his like they belonged together. Like she had every right to be there. The woman smiled at me with perfect white teeth. Mark cleared his throat. "Sarah, I'd like you to meet Jennifer. My wife." The words hit me like physical blows. Wife. His wife. While I stood there wearing my wedding ring. While our son's birthday party was about to begin in our backyard. While I was still his wife. "You're what?" It wasn't a question. The words came out flat. Dead. Because something inside me had just died. We got married last weekend in Vegas. I was going to tell you, but Tommy's party seemed like the perfect opportunity for everyone to meet her properly. The perfect opportunity. He thought our son's birthday party was the perfect opportunity to introduce his new wife while we were still legally married. While I still cooked his breakfast every morning when he bothered to come home. While his clothes still hung in our closet. Jennifer extended her manicured hand toward me. "Sarah, I've heard so much about you. Mark talks about what a wonderful mother you are." I stared at her hand like it was a snake. The backyard filled with the sounds of children arriving. Parents chatting. Tommy calling for me to come see his friends. Normal birthday party sounds. But nothing about this moment was normal. "When exactly did you get divorced?" Mark's face went pale. Jennifer's smile faltered for just a second. "Well, we're working on that part. The paperwork is complicated, you know how it is. But Jennifer and I are committed to each other, and we wanted to make it official in the eyes of God." In the eyes of God. While still married to me. While I waited up nights wondering where he was, making excuses to our son about why Daddy missed another bedtime story. "Mom, come on. Everyone's here." Tommy appeared at my elbow, tugging on my shirt. His face was bright with 7-year-old joy. This was supposed to be his perfect day. I looked at my son, then at my husband, then at the woman who thought she was married to him. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's go to your party." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of forced smiles and small talk. I watched Mark and Jennifer work the party like a team. Her helping serve cake. Him pushing kids on the swings. Playing house with my life as their stage. Other parents kept glancing at me with questions in their eyes. Who was this woman? Why was Mark's wife here at his son's birthday party? I caught whispered conversations stopping when I came too close. Jennifer had taken over my role as hostess, without even realizing it. She was charming. Funny. Good with the kids. Everything I should have been on my son's special day, except I was too busy trying not to fall apart. 10 months. That's how long I'd been suspicious. 10 months of Mark coming home late with explanations that didn't quite add up. Business trips that seemed to multiply. Phone calls he took in private. The way he'd started working out, buying new clothes, paying attention to his appearance in ways he hadn't in years. I'd asked him directly if he was seeing someone. He'd looked me in the eyes and sworn there was nobody else. Said I was being paranoid. Suggested I might want to talk to someone about my trust issues. Trust issues. While he was apparently planning a wedding. The party wound down as the sun started to set. Parents collected their kids. Tommy ran around with his new toys. Mark and Jennifer sat together on our patio furniture, her hand resting on his knee like she owned him. Finally, it was just the 4 of us. Tommy, me, Mark, and the woman who thought she was married to my husband. "Tommy, why don't you go play with your new video game for a while? The adults need to talk." My son looked between us with the intuition children have for tension. Something was wrong, but he couldn't name it. He hugged me tight before heading inside. The moment he was gone, I turned to face them. I need to understand something. You got married last weekend. In Vegas.
While you're already married to me.
Do you understand that's called bigamy? Jennifer's face went white. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Sarah, don't be dramatic. We'll get the divorce finalized soon. This is just making our commitment clear while we work through the legal details. The legal details. Like the fact that you're committing a felony. Now, wait a minute, Jennifer stood up, her voice getting sharp. Mark told me you two have been separated for months. That you've been living as roommates while working out custody arrangements. I stared at Mark. You told her we were separated. We basically are separated, Sarah. We've been growing apart for years. You know that. I know that you've been coming to my bed. I know that we had dinner together Thursday night. I know that you helped me plan this party. Does that sound separated to you, Jennifer? The color drained completely from Jennifer's face now. She looked at Mark like she was seeing him for the first time. Mark, you told me you weren't sleeping together anymore. We're not.
Not really.
It's complicated. Not really. It's complicated. I felt something cold and sharp settling in my chest. Let me uncomplicate it for you. Mark is my legal husband. We live in the same house. We share a bed. We share a bank account. We share a child. The only thing that's complicated here is that he's apparently also married to you. Jennifer sat back down heavily. This isn't what you told me. You said the marriage was over and everything but paperwork. It is over. Sarah, you know our marriage has been dead for years. Dead for years. Is that why you made love to me 6 nights ago? The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Mark couldn't meet Jennifer's eyes. Jennifer looked like she might be sick. That didn't mean anything, Sarah. Didn't mean anything. The words came out barely above a whisper. But something was building inside me. Something that had been building for 10 months of lies and gaslighting and excuses. You know what, Mark? You're right. Our marriage is dead. It died the moment you decided to marry someone else while still married to me. But here's the thing about dead marriages. They require burial. I stood up and walked toward the house. Where are you going? To make some phone calls. See, while you were in Vegas getting married, I was doing some research. About community property laws. About bigamy. About what happens when someone tries to hide assets during a divorce they haven't actually filed for. Mark's face went very still. What kind of research? The kind that costs you everything. I let that sink in for a moment. Watched understanding dawn in his eyes. See, I've been suspicious for months. So I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago. Very thorough man. He's documented every hotel stay, every restaurant, every gift you've bought Jennifer with our joint credit cards. Every lie you've told to both of us. Jennifer was staring at Mark like he was a stranger. But the really interesting discovery came last week. The business trips you've been taking. The ones where you were supposedly closing big deals, landing new clients. Want to know where you actually were? Mark didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Vegas. Atlantic City.
Tahoe.
Not closing business deals. Gambling. Losing. A lot. About $47,000 of our money, to be exact. Money you hid by opening credit cards in the business name. Credit cards I'm now legally responsible for. The color drained from Mark's face. Jennifer looked between us like she was watching a car accident. That's not. The gambling isn't what you think. Isn't what I think. What I think is that you've been lying to everyone about everything for months. What I think is that you married Jennifer because you need her income to cover your debts. What I think is that you've been using both of us. I pulled my phone from my pocket. So here's what's going to happen. I'm calling my lawyer first. Then the police. Then the credit card companies. Then I'm calling Jennifer's work to let them know their employee is married to a bigamist who's been stealing joint assets. Sarah, please. Let's talk about this rationally. Rationally. You brought your new wife to our son's birthday party, and you want to talk rationally. Jennifer stood up slowly. Mark, is what she's saying true? About the gambling? About the lies? Mark looked trapped.
Cornered.
The way cheaters look when all their stories fall apart at once. Jennifer, I can explain everything. The gambling was just bad luck. Temporary setbacks. And Sarah's making our relationship sound more active than it really is. More active than it really is, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Should I tell her about Thursday night? When you cried about work stress, and I held you. When you said you loved me and didn't know how to fix us. You said you loved her. Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. Or should I tell her about the credit cards? How you've been taking cash advances to pay for your romantic getaways with her. Cash advances that I'm legally liable for. Jennifer turned to Mark with something dangerous in her eyes. How much money? It's not as bad as she's making it sound. How much money, Mark? We can work through this together. That's what marriage is about. Which marriage? Jennifer's voice was sharp now. The one you have with me, or the one you have with her? The words hung in the air like smoke. Mark looked between us, probably calculating which lie might save him.
But there were no lies left.
Just consequences. Jennifer grabbed her purse from the patio table. This is insane. I can't. I need time to think. Jennifer, wait. Don't leave like this. But she was already walking toward the front of the house. Mark started to follow her, then looked back at me like I might disappear if he took his eyes off me. Sarah, please. We can work this out. For Tommy's sake. For Tommy's sake. You brought your girlfriend to his birthday party and introduced her as your wife while you're married to his mother. For his sake. The front door slammed. Jennifer's car started in the driveway. Mark stood there for a moment, listening to her drive away. When he turned back to me, his face had changed. The charm was gone. The explanations were gone. What was left looked desperate and mean. You've ruined everything. I've ruined everything. I didn't marry someone else while already married. I didn't steal joint assets to fund an affair. I didn't lie to everyone about everything. You could have handled this privately, like adults. Instead, you had to make a scene, embarrass me in front of Jennifer, turn this into some kind of melodrama. Turn this into melodrama. Mark, you married someone else. At our son's birthday party. There's no version of this that isn't dramatic. He started pacing the patio like a caged animal.
Fine.
You want a divorce? We'll get a divorce. But you're not taking Tommy away from me. And you're not taking half of everything just because you're angry. Taking half of everything. I'm not taking anything, Mark. I'm keeping what's legally mine, which is half of our assets and full custody of our son. You can't prove I'm an unfit father. Can't prove you're unfit. You're a bigamist who's been gambling away your child's college fund. You've been lying to everyone, including your son, about your double life. You brought your affair partner to his birthday party. Mark's face went red. You vindictive bitch. You planned this. You knew about Jennifer, and you let me bring her here just so you could humiliate us. I planned this. I had no idea you were stupid enough to marry her. I thought she was just your girlfriend. The bigamy was your own creative touch. This isn't over. You're right. It's not over. Because tomorrow morning I'm filing for divorce, requesting full custody, and having you arrested for bigamy. Tonight I'm calling the bank to freeze our joint accounts. And I'm calling your boss to let him know his employee has been embezzling from joint assets. Mark went very still. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Protect my son from a father who lies and steals and commits felonies. Try me. For a moment I thought he might explode. His hands were shaking. His face was red. He looked like a man who'd been backed into a corner with no way out. Then something shifted. He deflated like a punctured balloon.
Sarah, please.
I know I've made mistakes, but if you destroy me, you destroy Tommy's father. Is that really what you want? I want my son to have a father he can respect. A father who tells the truth. A father who doesn't betray the people who love him. I can change. I can get help for the gambling. Jennifer was a mistake. We can go to counseling. can change. Mark, you got married to someone else last week.
While married to me.
There's no counseling for that level of betrayal. He sat down heavily in one of the patio chairs. For the first time, he looked defeated. What do you want from me? I want you to sign divorce papers without a fight. I want you to agree to supervised visitation with Tommy until you prove you're stable. I want you to take responsibility for all the debt you've hidden. And I want you to stay away from me except when it concerns our son. And if I don't agree, then I press charges for bigamy, embezzlement, and fraud. Jennifer finds out about all the lies you told her. Your employer finds out about the missing money. Tommy finds out his father is a criminal. Mark stared at me for a long moment. When did you become so cold? When did I become cold? The day my husband brought his wife to our son's birthday party. That's when I learned that being warm and trusting and forgiving gets you nothing but betrayed. Inside the house, I could hear Tommy playing with his new toys. Normal 7-year-old sounds, video game music, and the soft thud of action figures battling on his bedroom floor. He had no idea his world had just been turned upside down. He's going to ask questions. About Jennifer. About why I'm not living here anymore. And I'll tell him age-appropriate truths. That sometimes adults make mistakes. That his parents are getting divorced, but we both love him. That none of this is his fault. You won't turn him against me. I won't have to. Your actions will speak for themselves. Mark stood up slowly. He looked older suddenly.
Smaller.
The confident man who'd walked into the birthday party with his new wife was gone. What was left looked broken and desperate. I need to get some things from the house. Get them now. Tonight. Tomorrow, I'm changing the locks. He walked toward the back door, then paused. For what it's worth, Sarah, I never meant for it to happen this way. Never meant for it to happen this way. How exactly did you mean for it to happen, Mark? What was the good version of betraying your wife and son? He didn't have an answer for that. People never do when their justifications collapse under examination. I watched him disappear into the house. Listened to his footsteps on the stairs. The sound of drawers opening. Closet doors sliding. Tommy's voice asking why Daddy was packing a suitcase. The lie came easily to Mark. Daddy has to travel for work, buddy. I'll be back soon. Another lie to add to the collection. But it bought us time. Tommy didn't need to know everything tonight. Tomorrow would be soon enough to start explaining why his family was falling apart. 30 minutes later, Mark came back outside carrying 2 suitcases and a garment bag. He looked like a man checking out of a hotel, leaving behind a life that had never really belonged to him. I'll call you tomorrow to work out the details. Call my lawyer. I'll text your number. Mark loaded his car in the driveway. I watched from the kitchen window as he sat behind the wheel for several minutes, probably calling Jennifer. Probably trying to salvage that relationship too. When his car disappeared down the street, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Relief. The house was quiet except for Tommy's game sounds upstairs. The birthday decorations still hung in the backyard. Cake crumbs on the patio table. Empty juice boxes in the trash. Evidence of what should have been a perfect day. I called my lawyer and left a voicemail. I called the private investigator to request his full report by morning. Called my sister to ask if Tommy and I could stay with her for a few days while everything got sorted out. Then I sat at the kitchen table and cried. Not for Mark. Not for our marriage. But for the life I'd thought we had. For the father I'd wanted Tommy to have. For the woman I'd been before I learned that love and trust could be weapons in the wrong hands. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and papers and difficult conversations with a 7-year-old boy who deserved better than any of this. There would be custody battles and asset division and the slow, painful process of rebuilding a life. But tonight, in the quiet of our house, I felt something else settling in beside the sadness. Strength. For 10 months, I'd lived with doubt and suspicion and the growing certainty that something was wrong. For 10 months, I'd question my instincts, second-guess my perceptions, let Mark make me feel crazy for suspecting the truth. Today, everything had crystallized into clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't the problem. And I wasn't going to be the victim. Mark had chosen to betray our marriage, steal our money, and traumatize our child. Those were his choices, his consequences to face. My choice was simpler.
I chose survival. I chose protection.
I chose the kind of love that acts instead of just feeling. Tommy called down the stairs. Mom, can you come read with me? Coming, sweetheart. I climbed the stairs toward my son's voice, toward the part of my life worth fighting for. Tomorrow, we would start over, but tonight we were safe. The birthday cake sat forgotten on the kitchen counter. 7 candles that never got lit. But somewhere in the darkness of this terrible day, something else had been kindled. The fire that burns bridges can also light the way forward. And I was ready to walk,